Hey guys, it is me again, and today we're taking a look at my newest addition to the World War II, one of my newest at least addition to the World War II collection. This is the German Messerschmitt ME262 by Cobi. Now, this thing is pretty much one of the first operational jet fighters and the first successful one to see service and combat. Now this thing was deployed in now this thing has a pretty rich story, so I guess we should go over. So the Germans were developing, of course, this jet program actually before the war started. But, you know, they could really only get successful designs up until halfway through the war, and this thing was combat ready, and it was, you know, already being used in combat by mid-1944, so around D-Day. And this plane was pretty successful. In its, that it was the first successful jet fighter. The Germans built about 1,000 of these things, and these things kind of were, at least in theory, were supposed to replace the German propeller fighter planes. Now, the problem was with these planes, Germany in 1944 wasn't doing too well. So they didn't have enough fuel to get these things running. And so a lot of these planes had a very short lifespan. In fact, also another problem, that's one of the largest problems with Germany in World War II. That one of the reasons they lost the war, one of the biggest reasons, was lack of resources to continue a war. When you're going up against the world's three largest superpowers at the time, which was the Soviet Union, Great Britain, and the United States, and you're a country like Germany, where you don't have massive oil reservoirs and whatnot, you're kind of screwed basically. There was just no feasible way the Germans could have won against the Allies in the situation they were at the time. Nonetheless, they still came up with these kind of designs and whatnot, and they had several jet designs all throughout the war. But this is arguably the most successful, and one of them I can think about, which was pretty interesting idea for a project, Project Natter, as it was called. It was basically, this has nothing to do with the ME262, but I just wanted to talk about it because it's cool and pretty terrifying to think about, like how desperate the Germans were at the end of the war. But basically, that thing would have been like a rocket-propelled aircraft. It would be attached to a launching bay, and the aircraft would be made entirely out of wood minus the engine. And the whole idea is that they would launch these things from the launching pads or whatever to the sky, to B-17 bombers. They would fly up to these bombers, and they would have a rocket kind of pod at the nose of the plane. They would fire a bunch of rockets into the B-17, and it would destroy a B-17 bomber, and then these things would come crashing down back into Earth. The pilot would bail out, and it was purposely made to be reusable. Or rather, like a discardable plane. Because the engine, they would recover the engine, but the actual plane itself would be trashed, the fuselage, because it was made out of wood. So yeah, the Germans were getting pretty desperate. You can just tell, by that. So this was definitely the most successful jet design, and for several reasons. One, it could take off, land, and, just keep being used. It's also one of very heavily armed planes. However, these planes also suffered massive engine problems. For one, these engines would have a very short lifespan of about, I want to say about 10 hours. I don't know the exact number, but it was a very short time of usage, these planes. And most of them couldn't really take off or see service because, again, the Luftwaffe, by 1944, not only did they not have aerial supremacy, but also lack of fuel. I mean, most Luftwaffe air squadrons by 1944 were grounded because, just no fuel out there. So a lot of these planes didn't see the service that maybe the Germans wanted to see them in. But yeah, it's a very interesting plane, of course. They were used from mid-1944 up until the end of the war by the Germans. And interestingly enough, Czechoslovakia actually had a few of these in service up until 1951. So these things did have a bit of post-war usage by some other countries. That is the fate of the ME262. Now, let's take a look at it. First of all, before we take a look at the plane itself, it does come with a figure. So just take them off. And let's zoom in on them. Oh god, there's a fly in the room. He's gonna try to fly my ear. But here he is. There's the German pilot. He's wearing all black. I guess it's supposed to kind of mean that he's like a little bit more, I guess, a more elite pilot. I don't know. He's got some insignias on his arm and nice print. I don't really mind these Cobi figures. I'm not that huge of a fan. I always replace them with Lego figures when I get their kits, but you know, they're okay. I like the hats though. I like to use these hats. You know, they're pretty nice and very crisp. Actually, see if I can zoom in. My camera likes to get blurry when it's really zoomed in, so I guess I can't zoom in too much. But you can just see the crisp detailing of the print there. It's pretty nice. I haven't really had any kind of quality control issue with printing or anything in these figures, so that's nice. They're just not really my cup of tea, these figures. Comes also with a flight. It also comes with a flight stand. It's exactly the same like all other Cobi flight stands, except for the sign there, Messerschmidt 262 Schwalbe, which was the nickname of this plane. So yeah, pretty nice. You could put the plane up in this. I like to not. I don't really. Some of these planes I like to keep with display them without the flight stand. I don't know. This one I like to display in the flight stand, or without the flight stand rather. I like to have it landed. But yeah. So let's discuss the plane. Here it is in all its glory, the ME262. This is a very nicely detailed plane. Now, it's definitely one of the most accurate looking planes Cobi's ever made. I mean, granted, to achieve the accurate look of this plane, there's a lot of custom parts. The engines are custom and are exclusive for this kit. The nose, again, is exclusive. The tail is exclusive. You know, so some people don't like that. Some people like to see, you know, trying to achieve these shapes with using parts of, you know, that they already have. You know, just kind of make do with what you got. But I think it, you know, complements the look of the plane, and it looks pretty accurate. So here it has this, you know, pretty distinct landing gear design on it, which reminds me a lot of the Bell P-39, which is another World War II plane that had kind of a landing gear system like this, except the Bell P-39 was a propeller aircraft. This is a jet-powered aircraft. But yeah, this thing has a nice combination of stickers and prints. The camouflage design is printed here on the tips of the wings, on the top of the engine, on the tail. It's all printed, but the insignias like the Balkenkreuzen on the wings and on the fuselage. Hold on, let me just put this bond back in place. Yeah, the Balkenkreuzen on the wings and on the fuselage. The number 13 there. These signs, these kind of warning signs and whatnot. These are all stickers. This is printed. Got the 4 cannons on the nose there. Pretty nice. Now this thing does have bombs. This thing was a fighter bomber, so you can carry bombs. So that's nice. And the landing gear does retract, although I find it's a lot easier for you to remove these bombs before putting the landing gear on. Just so you can kind of put it in all the way. And then you can put these bombs back in there. So that's nice. They're just kind of very simply attached to the underbelly, to the belly of the aircraft. And these landing gear also retract. Although I have to say, this thing doesn't look that good with the landing gear retracted. They stick out a lot. So I like to just remove the wheels, like so, and then retract the landing gear, because then, you know, they're completely tucked away. And because then, you know, a lot of these Cobi planes, that's a problem. Sometimes you have to remove the wheels, because I think that the landing gear bulges out a little bit too much. So, you know, it looks better like this, in my opinion. You can't see the landing gear. Yeah, I know this video is really sloppy, but like I said in my previous video, I'm not home. I'm in a trip, so don't have access to all the fancy, I use the word loosely, review equipment. So, yeah. Stacking my camera on top of stuff right now, so yeah. But I will be going back home tomorrow, though, so what's nice is that, you know, my next videos will be recorded at my home, which is much easier for me to record, and I can get all the good stuff, you know, to compare this stuff to. So yeah, very nice plane. I really like this. It looks very accurate. Now, one thing I will have to say though, this thing has a very nice mixture between brick-built camouflage and stickered printed camouflage. I'm not that huge of a fan of the printed camouflage. I don't really think it fits with the aesthetic of something that's supposed to be brick-built. Brickmania does that a lot nowadays, you know, that they do printed or stickered camouflage, and I'm not a big fan of that. I'd rather have it brick build. I think it fits with the aesthetic of Lego a lot better, but nonetheless, it's still pretty nice. So, yeah, and I did have one quality control issue with my model, the cockpit here. This cockpit bubble piece was literally not attaching at all. This thing would sit, and every time it would just sit where it's here, where it's at right now, but every time I tilt the aircraft upside down, it would just fall right off. So I did something that most people wouldn't do. I glued it in place, so you can see all the white stains of the super glue that, you know, I've used to glue it. And if I want to remove the cockpit, I have to remove it from the bottom like this, but at least it's removable. So yeah, I had to do that because honestly, man, I could not close the cockpit at all, and yeah, it was just really annoying. Every time I pick this thing up from the shelf, the cockpit would fall off. So yeah, not very nice. This thing has working ailerons, which is nice. They go up and down. That's something to expect with Cobi aircraft. They do that all the time, which is awesome. And yeah. So yeah, again, I've really just had quality control issues. So there's the engine. The engine is really interestingly put together. It's like two shells. Then you have to kind of put these turbine pieces inside. And yeah, they look nice. Although I'll say this, I think that this looks a bit ugly, like this, where it's sticking out. I think it's, in reality, they should have made this piece a little bit longer so that they could cover up this part, and it would, you know, it would end up looking something like this, because it just looks a little ugly with this silver bit sticking out. You can put it in there inside, but then it makes the jet engines look smaller than they should. So that's one complaint I have. They should have made this a little bit longer, this piece, so you could actually, you know, have it accurate. But yeah, this can spin, so I guess it, you know, for stop motions, if you want to have it look like it's actually flying, then there you go. Well, you know, there'd be flames coming out of the turbines at the back. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this plane. I think it's a great plane. Size comparison, I can't really compare it to many planes, but it's around the same size as most Cobi aircraft, so that's nice. Yeah, this is amazing. I think that this is one of the best planes Cobi's done. It looks, you know, dead on, the ME262. It's super accurate looking to the actual plane. And I think they just did an amazing job with the camouflage scheme, the pattern, you know, built on this thing. You know, kudos to the Cobi designers. They're really talented when it comes to building aircraft and whatnot. Don't get me wrong, I think Cobi does great tanks as well, but I think aircraft is where they excel. I mean, this looks fantastic. I really want to see Cobi do more of these World War II jet fighters. I know they weren't used very frequently, but it's just cool to have one of these things. Maybe it would be cool if they released a Gloster Meteor in the future, or maybe some of the other German jet fighters of the war. I'm thinking of the Dornier jet. I can't remember the name exactly of that plane. Can't remember the designation, but it would be cool if they did that one. You know, even though that, you know, it'd just be cool if they did a bunch of these German planes. So, anyways, that is the review of the Cobi ME262. I know it was a bit of a quick review, but I hope it was enough for you guys to enjoy. And yeah, anyways, I thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe, guys, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.